Hey Falcons fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into today's video. Here's what we're going to do. You guys submitted mailbag questions on our last video, which of course you can find here on our channel. And so I went through, found all the ones that use the hashtag Falcons as we asked. Makes it easier for me to find the questions. We're going to go through and answer as many Falcons questions as we can submitted by you, our subscribers. We'll start with Quentin, who says, do you think the depth of our receiving core is good enough? I think if Ridley gets a little banged up, we could be in trouble and we have to definitely rely on our tight ends more. Your thoughts? So listen, you are right on this, and I think if Ridley is banged up, he hasn't really been in his career, but let's say it happens, he misses 5, 6, 7 games like Julio Jones did last year, then yes, the Falcons will need their young wide receivers to ball out. I mean, Russell Gage is going to have as good of a season as he did last year, if not better, and then somebody not named Russell Gage and Calvin Ridley has to also be good, whether it's Olamide Zaccheaus or Christian Blake or Frank Darby, the rookie out of Arizona State. One of them has to be at least reliable, at least decent, not, 800 yards and 90 catches or whatever it is, but 40 catches and 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. As a number 3 wide receiver, that would go a long way, especially if Ridley goes down with an injury. Now, of course, we hope Ridley doesn't, and if he does not, then I think they'll be just fine if it's just, Gage and then Ridley balling it out with, of course, the tight end Kyle Pitts. But I do think you are right that they can be in a little bit of trouble because the depth is not that great. Now, in terms of other wide receivers, again, I mentioned Frank Darby. There really isn't that much. Hopefully somebody who is the practice squad guy or an undrafted free agent or somebody can go ahead and rise to the top. But I think that if they all stay healthy, the wide receiver depth chart will look pretty darn good. But if there are injuries, but this happens with a lot of NFL teams, your starters go down, then they could be a little bit bleak, and I would agree with that, the fact that they have to rely on the tight ends, and that's why, of course, they drafted Kyle Pitts, number 4 overall. Okay, pin comment down below. Grade the Falcons wide receiver group as it currently stands. A, B, C, D, or F. How do you feel about it? Right? I love Ridley, and I think Gage is going to be good, and Frank Darby, and you got all these other guys, but I would say right now it's a B-, and it's a B- as long as everyone stays healthy, as we mentioned earlier, but give me your grade down below with the Falcons wide receiver group right now. Let's move on here. Next question. This comes from Coconut Rat, who says, I think the defense can be good under the new defensive coordinator. Yes, I do, and I really like Dean Pease. I think he's going to be great. However, he doesn't have a lot of help, and I think that's my big worry, and I've talked about that a lot here on the channel, is that Pease is a great mastermind of a defense, and he took over a mediocre defense in Tennessee and made it a very good defense during his tenure, but I think he's taking over a worse overall defense right now in Atlanta with the talent that he has. Now, is the Falcons defense horrific? No, it's not that bad. They have young corners on the outside. Both a Sheffield or an Oliver or obviously A.J. Terrell are going to be young and good. I like what they did the secondary in terms of the safeties, at least what they did with Richie Grant in the draft. The linebackers were really good last year. I think that they played probably the best out of the group. My problem is the pass rushers, and I think every single defense and every single championship defense, if you're talking about a good defense, it starts with the front 4 back. It feels like we're starting from the backside up, and even then the backside isn't necessarily that great, like maybe top 15, but not necessarily a top 10 secondary in the National Football League. So he has a lot of work to do. Can he make this a reasonable defense? Yes, he can. I think that should be your expectation on the high end for Atlanta. If you have a top 15 defense, then this is going to be a winning football team. Whether that's 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins, who knows? But if it's a bottom 15 defense, then you're going to see a lot more of what's happened the past couple of seasons where the Falcon offense will score, the defense won't be able to get stops, critical, drives in the fourth quarter, they won't be able to create turnovers, which has been a problem, and thus they lose football games. So Pease can do it, but you need someone like a Dante Fowler to play out of his mind. I mean, Fowler has got to be a good pass rusher, not a useless pass rusher as he has been, no offense, the past couple of seasons. So I think that Pease can do it. He needs help along the front 4, and those guys are going to have to play a lot better than projected right now going into the season. I'll ask this question for you guys. Will Pease have a top 15 defense in 2021? What do you think? Will they be top 15? That's a big question. Type Y down below for yes, type N down below for no. I think we should hope that they will be a top 15 defense, but as we know, the front 4 is going to be a big part in determining if that will be the case. Okay, before we go and keep going, all of these questions were pulled from our subscribers. So if you want to get your question in on a future subscriber mailbag, go ahead and subscribe. Go down below, hit the red subscribe button, help us grow the Atlanta Falcons Today channel here as we're going to try and make it the best one-stop shop on YouTube for your latest Falcons news and rumors, as well as depth chart breakdowns we did a couple days ago, and then, of course, mailbag videos as we always do here on the weekend. So go down below and subscribe and turn on the notification bell as well. That way you get a little notification on your phone whenever we drop our latest video. Let's get the next question here. This comes from Dirty Birds Territory. Should we be evil and trade Julio Jones to Detroit? I don't know if that's evil to do. Here's the deal. Okay, I understand this question because people are upset that Julio Jones wants out of Atlanta, and so he seems ungrateful for what we've given him and what he's, of course, been able to accomplish in Atlanta, and so it's like trade him somewhere he would hate. That way it shows him that, Atlanta wasn't so bad after all, and I understand that. How I would do it is you give Julio Jones to the highest bidder. So well, in the past, maybe pre-Undisputed with Shannon Sharpe, I would have been a little more inclined to send him somewhere where he could be successful in the AFC, not in the NFC. Now it's like, all right, I mean, if you don't want to be in Atlanta, I'm not being evil about it, but highest bidder, if it's Detroit, or if it is, you know, I'm trying to think of another team that would be interested that's not that great. Detroit is just the best example right now. If it's New England, and I think New England's the worst of the people that are asking, you know, instead of San Francisco or instead of Baltimore, you go have fun in New England, let's see how great Cam Newton actually is. So highest bidder wins, and that's how it will happen. I don't think the Falcons are going to go ahead and take less just to put Julio Jones in a good spot. I don't think it's evil to send him somewhere bad either, but I also wouldn't mind sending him to Detroit just to be like, have fun in a franchise that's not going to win a lot of football games, because yes, Atlanta has been bad the past couple of years, but it's not like he's been Calvin Johnson in Detroit his entire career where they never go to the postseason except for like 1 year. They have been very successful, had plenty of opportunities, and he went to a Super Bowl, and so I think Julio needs to chill a little bit, because it was a little bit, in my opinion, harsh to make it sound like Atlanta is some sort of prison that he just wants to get out of as fast as possible. Okay, next question here comes from Mr. Rex TD. I think Feleipe Franks will take the reins from Matt Ryan. Will Franks play a big impact? I don't think so. And listen, A.J. McCarron is the backup. And this is something that people just instantly glossed over. Like, they signed A.J. McCarron after letting go of Matt Schaub, and Schaub rose off into retirement, and he's an old guy, man. I met him a couple times. He's a very old quarterback. Young guy, old quarterback. You get my point. They signed McCarron, who has a lot of starts in the National Football League. It's not like he's just some no-name backup who's never played. I mean, obviously, the Alabama years, and then he did play with the Cincinnati Bengals, but everyone forgets that. And so they signed Feleipe Franks, who you understand if you're a Falcon fan because you're probably living in Georgia, or you're a Bulldog fan, and he, of course, moved around from Arkansas, and he was in Florida before that. So we get the name, but the impact is not going to be any sort of immediate. I don't think he's going to even be on the 53-man roster. I think he'd be a practice squad guy at best. You would hope that you could build maybe a future NFL quarterback in the next 3 seasons, slowly behind Matt Ryan, but the odds of him being the heir apparent and taking the reins from Matt Ryan, I mean, very low. I just, undrafted quarterbacks, later round drafted quarterbacks are one thing. Undrafted free agent quarterbacks are a completely different breed. I mean, if you can't get drafted, and it doesn't guarantee that you're not going to be good, but the odds of being a starter and taking over from a guy like Matt Ryan, it would take an injury or some catastrophic thing for that to happen. So McCarron's the backup. McCarron is right now the guy to take the reins from Matt Ryan, but that would only be in a obviously losing scenario or an injury scenario. I think they're going to draft a quarterback next year to go ahead and be the actual heir apparent to Matt Ryan. But Matt Ryan, that's a long way off. He wants to play for the next couple of years in Atlanta. I'll ask this question. What's your confidence level in Matt Ryan's going into the season? All right, scale of 0 to 100. How do you feel about Matt Ryan? I, for one, am very confident. A lot of Falcon fans I talk to are very confident as well, but I want to hear from you guys. Your confidence level in Matt Ryan, scale from 0 to 100 down below. Okay, Raj says, what do you think about Frank Darby? He's getting a lot of attention and love from fans and media, and he's moving up the wide receiver depth chart. Just want to know your thoughts. So he is getting a lot of attention. It's kind of interesting because I like Frank Darby, but we also got to remember what Frank Darby is. He's a 6th-round draft pick who played 3 games last year, and even when he was a starter back in where he's played a full season in 2019, wasn't necessarily great. He had a lot of touchdowns, not a lot of catches, and not a lot of yards. So we are automatically just putting him at wide receiver 2 or 3 right now in our depth charts, assuming he's going to be good. Long way to go from there. I think Falcon fans are a little bit overhyped on Frank Darby, and I want to just undersell him a little bit. That way you don't get too overhyped because, if he struggles his first year, then it's like abandoned ship, as it always works in the NFL. So I don't think he's going to be anything special this year, but he could provide a little bit of depth, and obviously we talked about that. They need depth at the wide receiver spot. All right, time for one more here. ATM Amazing says, Thomas, how are you? I'm well, thank you. How are you? What do you think of Javian Hawkins? The coaches thinks he's a stud. Could he be the starter over Mike Davis? Davis should be a number 2 in my opinion anyway. You're right with what you said right there. Davis is a number 2, which has me worried about the Falcons' running backfield, and that's something I've talked about a lot throughout the past couple of months. Hawkins, though, is not going to vault him to be the number 1, and this is just like Frank Darby, a very productive, even more so than Darby was, college football player, but he opted out in 2020, and at the same time, there were 18 backs drafted in the draft this past year, and he wasn't one of them. So that means there were 18 running backs who teams felt more comfortable giving a draft contract to than Javian Hawkins. So we can't just sit here and be like, well, he was really good at Louisville, so that means he's going to be really good in Atlanta. There are obviously problems. He's very undersized. He's very small. I think he'd be a good 1-2 punch with Mike Davis and can mix in there. But the odds of him just vaulting to number 1 and then Davis being a number 2, at least this year, are very unlikely. Although, as we know, when you get to training camp, anyone can pop and anyone can be good, and Hawkins is definitely one to keep an eye on. But there was a reason he was not drafted, and there was a reason that 18 other players were picked ahead of him, and terms of being a running back, and hopefully that fuels him, but it doesn't bode well for a future star at the running back spot in the ATL. Okay, hashtag Falcons down below if you didn't get your question answered. Hopefully you'll get it in on our next mailbag video coming up next week. And so go down below, type the hashtag Falcons, type any question you want me to ask in the comments section, and hopefully you'll get pulled in a future video. Ultimately, for today here on Atlanta Falcons Today, I'm your host, Thomas Mott, signing off. Enjoy your weekend.